So welcome everyone. Good morning. You are on Crunch Simply Digital's Chatbots and AI in Education webinar, also known as when the robot overlords take over our jobs. What do we do? It's a half-hour presentation, and I am your host, Richard Purvis. I'm the founder and technical director at Crunch Simply Digital. My day job is to look at the technical solutions that exist in marketing and down the marketing funnel for our clients and apply them, which is where chatbots and AI have come from in the past 18 months. Joining us today is our guest speaker, and that is Josh Evans, who is the CTO of We Build Bots, a company based in Cardiff. Josh is on mute at the moment. I'll be passing the presenter role over to him in about 15 minutes when I've gone through my positioning piece. So Josh's role over at We Build Bots, he's a real live AI developer. So in the years to come, when our robot overlords take over the world, you can draw their lineage back to Josh and his responsibility for setting this all in motion. But the point of today's presentation is to give you guys insight and a business case into how to apply artificial intelligence in education. Now, it's labeled as chatbots and AI, but as Josh and I often speak about, is that chatbots don't really go deep enough. It, as a word, doesn't really go deep enough into what this technology is really about. And this webinar is about going a bit deeper into that and seeing what sits behind chatbots, what's the reason for using them, and why education should be looking at artificial intelligence as a way to help student recruitment. So that's a picture of me, Josh. Already done this. So the driver behind looking at things like artificial intelligence is quite a simple process. I think you guys, if you're in HE or if you're in FE, if you're a college or university, you will have seen these projections for many years in the past and seen this dip coming down the road and been looking at solutions and ways to mitigate the clear pressure that there's going to be in the industry over the next 2 to 3 years. Obviously, the graph dips and then starts to move up, but this graph here shows us how many of your natural customers or students there are going to be available to resource from and attract to your institution in the next coming years. I think what the dip is doing for us all is laser focusing us on solutions and technology that we need to implement to, as I said, mitigate this dip in human beings actually being available to attract to university. But it's not just the dip in people. We're also seeing pressures from other industry movements like the increase in apprenticeship. So the cynicism that's been in the media over the past few years about going to university. So what does a drop in the supply mean? Well, it's a classic supply and demand problem, is that if we've got an increase in competition for students, then we have to find a way to increase that demand for our own institutions in a world where that supply is dropping. So how do you do that? Well, naturally, guys, most of you guys on here are marketeers and work in the student attraction teams. And the solution to a drop in demand for our services is to look at casting our net wider. Now, if you're a university or a college who generally recruits from your local area, and by local area I mean commutable distances of 30 to 50 miles, then you're going to have to start to look at that supply coming from further afield. So maybe looking at 100 miles, the next couple of counties along, or maybe some of the nearest cities. And you're going to have to push your marketing messages out there. Now, The advantage of doing that is that you get a wider pool to fish from. The disadvantage is the further away you move from people who are familiar with your institution, is that your marketing messaging becomes more complex. You need to first explain who you are more than you do for a local student who already knows who you are. You need to take them on a journey through the institution that you need to assume they know less about you. And this whole messaging gets a lot more complex if we're an institution who needs to look at filling the gap in the students on the international stage. So as we spread our marketing to the international stage, the conversations breakdowns can be exaggerated, and for obvious reasons, different languages, different cultures. And so if you're going to be relying on different marketplaces, be that different parts of the UK or different places around the globe, you are going to have to increase the sophistication of how you attract students to the university to counteract the natural and clear drop in demand there's going to be over the next few years. It's asked the question is that I've referenced that students and customers, and I hope now, sort of 4 or 5 years down the line from when we first started talking about this, that most institutions are aware, and even academics are aware that students are really our customers. And if that is the case, it does allow us to look at other industries and how other industries are dealing with their supply and demand problems. Because as we know, there's pressures from global trade around the world, lack of customers. The EU is moving into recessionary points at the moment, and all industries are looking at how can we get better customers. And it's not just about filling the top of the hoppers. So if we have infinite marketing budgets, you can mitigate these problems by just pushing more marketing out, attracting more people, and hoping people flow through that funnel at the same conversion rate as they did before. But that is not the most efficient way of doing it, and we all don't have infinite marketing budgets. So I thought it was useful for us to have a look at why other industries are looking to deliver customer service automation. Now, at this point, I probably should define what why I've moved to using the word automation as opposed to chatbots, because as I've asked Josh to explain later on, is that this is about automating a process. In any industry where there needs to be cost efficiencies, the first thing to look at is how do we automate the process that we have in place to make our process more efficient. There are always two ways to deal with these pressures of efficiency. You can throw more resource at it, or you can become more efficient. And if you look at the customer service industry, they went through a process of having to increase the amount of people working in their customer services as people's demand for better customer service increased over time. And then we had the world by which we had call centres in the UK, and then when there wasn't automation around, the solution seemed to just more people but look for cheaper people, which is when we started to see the industry move overseas to Indian call centres, and then that obviously had other trickle-down effects and effects on customer service which some people didn't appreciate. So the industry's kind of then looked back over the years and looked at how to automate its processes so they can still have a domestic-based call centre and people talking to people in their local communities as opposed to being passed around the globe to different people. And they've looked at, and that's where chatbots really have started to move into that industry. Why are they doing it, and why should we do it? Well, if you guys are going to have to just simply interact with as many people as possible to ensure you get your recruitment numbers, then you need to be interacting with people all the way down the funnel. So this is a classic marketing funnel: awareness, consideration, purchase, service, and advocacy. the awareness is making people aware of it. The consideration phase is where people go away and consider, and then the purchase in our marketplace is when people actually apply to the university and turn up on the day, which is again another pressure point we're feeling. So we focus a lot on the awareness, but what I want you to pull out of this slide is just how many different touch points there are. Now, you're a recruitment team of maybe 3, 4, 5 people within a university or a college, then you've got to handle all these different possible touch points or leave them on the table. So from doing PR, search, online display, paid social, these are places within the customer journey that we tend to help out. So you'll bring in agencies to help you out here, down to the people turning up to your open days and moving on through the open day and application process. You guys tend to handle a lot of that, emails, collateral, sending out prospectuses, doing blogs, white papers, surveying people. All these will be familiar jobs that you have to do. Some of these processes can be automated, but not all of the processes. It's become clear when we introduced Josh is that artificial intelligence and automation is about finding that blend between applying the human resource where it has most effect and applying automation to your process where it makes most sense. So is there a business case in the customer service? Are people happy to interact with us through automated software? Here are some stats to take away. I won't read them all. They'll be indicative, you'll know this, but most of the stats you will find do support that people will be interested, and businesses are interested in doing it. When you look at it from a business point of view, they are looking at it to in the customer service industry to save on salaries. I don't think the university market is in this customer service space. Customer service are trying to utilize automation because they've already overpopulated their businesses with people to try and handle the customers. The problem we have in the education market is that we are under-resourced with people to handle this level of complexity, and therefore we have to bring in multiple third parties. We have to bring in everyone from the university on clearing. So if you just think about clearing, how many people you drag in left, right and centre to man the phones on that day, we're under-resourced. And so that's why the education market needs to be looking at automation. It's not to get rid of people, but it's to help us employ people, employ artificial intelligence to help us do our jobs on a daily basis. But is it what the people want? Most of the surveys out there say that people are happy to interact with automation when it's applied properly. And so these are some top line stats, and there'll be more available. But our bet is that when we apply it properly, just like when we apply retargeting techniques and good marketing properly, people are happy to see adverts if they're relevant, and people are happy to interact with chatbots and automation when it actually helps them. And this is I think the key to it in getting it right, because this is one of those technologies where if done incorrectly, it will hinder you as much as getting it right will help you. So I won't dwell on this slide too long because I'm slightly running over time. I want to give Josh his fair dues on introducing us to the chatbots. We did a survey, our own kind of desktop survey, to go and have a look at. We picked out the Russell Group universities just as a test group, and then just went to have a look to see, are any of the institutions we can see actually applying this technology properly? And as you can see from these top line stats, we could only find a handful of people within institutions applying even basic automation techniques like Facebook Messenger. So you can kind of push that against whether or not you're doing that. And what we're trying to do really is with automation is to not have to spend more money on the front end pushing people through into the but make that funnel more efficient, that you can handle the day-to-day inquiries, the frequently asked questions, and overall just convert more people who are expressing interest in us. So I'm going to hand over to Josh now on the presenter role, and he's going to take over and give you some insight. Feel free to throw any questions or think of any questions. So let me just hand this over. Hopefully it will go smoothly. So thank you for listening, and I'll be back on after Josh.
Hi everyone, hope you can hear me and that I've been unmuted. Just to give you a quick intro. Oh, great, thanks Juliet. Perfect. Yeah, so just to give you a quick intro, I'm Josh Evans, I'm CTO at We Build Bots. We build customer service automation tools for a range of sectors across utilities, sports clubs, brands, and more so recently we're in public sector with local authorities. Local authorities are maybe one that's somewhat similar to sort of what you guys are experiencing, in that they don't tend to get, they have to try and reduce a lot of the frequently asked questions and try and find a way to sort of automate the answers to those to try and reduce the strain on their department. But also they have a task to sort of proactively engage users who may come to sort of local authorities, and that's where chatbots and sort of automation tools that are running across these sort of normal customers are used to using, but aren't maybe the traditional channels really. But what I thought I'd give you just a very quick rundown of just a couple of sort of the levels of integration of a chatbot. As Rich said, it's not the sort of silver bullet to answer every question in the world, but what it can do is that volume of sort of frequently asked questions that maybe don't require any, but what they can do is try and reduce those calls. So yeah, so basically chatbots can be used to try and cut down some of those frequently asked questions that don't necessarily need an agent to answer, and also more frequently your sort of prospective students and customers don't necessarily actually want to speak to someone either. If they want a quick answer and they're looking at multiple different unis and they can find one instantly, whereas someone else, they've got to jump on a phone and sort of wait on, more than likely they're going to go for the quick answer. And that's something that sort of every industry, including yourselves, has got to be sort of prepared. So just to give a quick rundown of sort of what you can see on my screen, on the right, you've got a chatbot. You might have a lot of similar ones. And on the left-hand side is our flagship product, IntelliAgent, which is, I'll go into a little more detail in a moment, but this is where all of these conversations and interactions can be managed. So I think if you haven't seen a chatbot before, they're normally a mix of buttons, and the main reason for that is for a lot of things is actually quicker to tap a button than typing out, as shown here. So I've got sort of a couple of topics there. So I've got halls of residence. And even in something sort of simple, you can have multiple layers of interaction. So for vacancies, you could directly integrate into the actual halls, find out which rooms are available, and even allow people to sort of snap to the room, see the facilities, and even maybe book an appointment to actually talk to someone and book, so they can actually try and cover maybe 60–70% of that sort of getting involved in sort of booking their room at halls without actually an agent getting in. Or it can be as light touch, finding out when sort of check. Here we go. This will just be a simple lookup to a knowledge base. You can see that check-in up to a week before a term starts, and you can do that right here in person. Or what a bot can do is just add that extra layer again. So it can say, shall I send you a reminder once check-in? That will trigger a message in the background that will ping out to this user when their term starts, because we'll know all their information already from being connected to your CRMs. And that just provides a little bit of extra sort of support for the student, which also then in turn stops them from coming back later on. So it's all about trying to be sort of proactively supportive of the students. But there you go, that was like a really sort of easy lookup for a knowledge base. Obviously, Rich mentioned open days is probably a big thing people to find out when they are. So I just type, when's the next open day? This could then go look up on your system, find out exactly when it is. So here you go, the next open day taking place in June, starts at 9, finishes at 3. And you can also then offer up more events that might be, depending on sort of what you know about that user, they can be customized. So you know if they're interested in your university sort of sports clubs and that kind of thing, you can fire up different events that might be related to those. So it's all about personalizing that sort of customer experience, trying to provide as much as possible. So and then bots can be used for answering some of those frequently asked questions, but some people do need to speak to. Often the chatbot can only answer so. So I'll just give you a quick example of someone who might actually need to speak to someone. So here you go. Here's someone saying that didn't get enough points in exams to get onto my marketing course. Can you help? So this can instantly a bit of a sort of prompt here. You can also send like GIFs and videos to make it a bit more sort of interesting and exciting to you. And this can put someone straight through to an agent. So you'll see here now that when I click, this is where our actual product kicks in then. So on the left-hand side here, you can see that we've already picked up quite a bit of information about that user. Sorry about this GIF just looping in the background. It's actually quite distracting now. I look at it for more than a few seconds. But you can see that like we've already put this user in a clearing department, which means that we can sort of put certain agents towards answering specific queries. We've already picked up from their free text that we're looking they're looking at marketing. We can see sort of other content of keywords and topics that they've used in their chat. And if they've been in touch before, you can see like the full conversation history. So here I can see, there we go, as Phil said, I didn't have enough points to get my marketing course. The agent can jump in and this just becomes live, but with the added benefit of having all of that information so that the student isn't having to repeat themselves. You can obviously pull in information and integrate directly with your CRM, so even, I'm sure it's not quite as easy to do this, but if I say, I'm sure there's probably a few more hurdles to jump through than just being able to put someone on the course, even if they don't get enough points. But just for this example. And now through this intervention, you actually know quite a lot of information, and this can be pushed straight through back into your other marketing. I know what the topic was about. I know what I did. I can add sort of notes for book student onto course. And I can return them back to the chatbot. But while this might seem only like a few little sort of notes, what this can actually do in terms of your sort of marketing funnel is, as Rich mentioned, that process, this can shift them on a step. This can put them back through the loop. Maybe if someone's come to you with like quite an introductory query, but did actually need to speak to someone, you can answer that question, put that information back into your CRM and back into this system, and this can automatically fire up like a Facebook audience ready for you to push ads back at that person. So if someone has maybe just asked a general question applying to uni later in the year, this is the perfect way of sort of lead genning that person and being able to push relevant ads back at them, because you're going to know what type of course they want. You'd already have that information in your CRM. And so it's a really nice way of not only helping people through the, but actually redirecting people back to maybe previous steps if they need a sort of a little bit more encouragement in order to actually get them to sign up. But as you can see here, I've put this person back into the normal customer. Ask if there's anything they can help with. I'll click no, and we just get a little rating system here, just so you can see how the chatbot's doing, and also sort of rate your agents as well, which is obviously massively helpful, because it's obviously the only way to improve your sort of customer service is by sort of monitoring it. But that's just a really sort of quick rundown of a couple of sort of light touch to sort of medium and then quite deep integrations with your CRM if you wanted to pull in lots of content, but how you can really kind of manage every part of that funnel through little bits of automation that then sort of lean on a human as and when necessary. And then just in terms of some sort of general market additions to, obviously, anything that happens in a chatbot or any kind of automation can be monitored and filtered against. So once someone has come and interacted with especially through a channel like Facebook or something that actually has some kind of profile, you actually know quite a lot about a person without them really even knowing. So you can suddenly start filtering by their location, by their gender, so like in this example, someone asked about the marketing course, so you can filter what type of conversation they've had with, and you can really start to build up little segments of the audience that you can then push those messages to. So where you might be struggling to actually get people over the line into sort of wanting to sort of sign up to your university, or this might be a way of just making those messages personalized enough that actually push someone over. And I think that's probably the big part around how sort of chatbots and automation should be used, really, is that it's that little bit more than just the frequently asked questions page on a website, which, to be honest, people probably don't go to. You can normally find these kind of tools on the channels that your students are already using, whether that be sort of Messenger, WhatsApp, Instagram, even sort of Twitter bots and that kind of stuff exists, as well as being able to handle and filter emails into a central inbox, then filter them off to the sort of the right person to deal with that. But it should always be a part of using the information making it a little bit more personalized, because you have that little extra bit of knowledge from understanding what they've said, and then just knowing the right time, an actual sort of live human into that conversation, because you probably found already that some people just don't want to talk to anyone until they're ready to talk to someone. So that what that might mean is that you just push them back into the queue for more advertising, or maybe a follow-up message from the chatbot in a few weeks to see if they need to ask anything. And I think if there's anything to take from sort of this webinar in terms of the automation is exactly that, is just knowing when to automate parts and then when to sort of segment that customer with. So I think a quick little rundown of how chatbots can be used, as well as sort of a marketing piece and a customer service. But if anyone's got any questions, then fire away.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Are we both on? You can hear me, Josh?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, guys. So, in summary, what I want you guys to take away from this is that, as within marketing and almost anything we're doing these days, automation is key, and it's a way of helping you do that. Now, you can see with the IntelliAgent system, what I really like and changing our minds about what a chatbot is that you're actually giving people who are responsible for dealing with the interactions between students another tool, as in email automation and and a bit like the way we handle our social media these days is through systems like Hootsuite. Now, Hootsuite hasn't replaced any social media teams. What it's done is it allowed social media teams to actually operate to any kind of degree of efficiency. And I think that's what this automation communication software is really going to do for us. So that's thanks very much, Josh. And we do have a question coming over. Feel free, if you are time poor, to jump off, and we'll email you the recordings of this, or stay on and ask questions away. So Paul has asked, Josh, this is probably one for you. Can a system handle multiple languages? I guess it's related to international recruitment.
Yes, absolutely. So we can detect a multitude of languages across a sort of different amount of character sets as well. So that's not an issue. Depending on sort of what channel you've used, we can also customize the content back to that student based on sort of language, location, and a whole host of sort of other factors. So yeah, you can really customize the message that you want to get back to the students depending on those factors. So for international students, obviously you'd want to provide more information around sort of that side of the application process, and we can pick that up straight away.
Okay, and in terms of, is the system handling its languages, or are you having to program in that language? How do you tend to handle that, I reckon?
We can do it a mix of both ways. So we can either have translations provided, or we can actually sort of handle the translations live within our. It obviously depends. There's probably a bit more accuracy in terms of if you actually hand sort of program the languages, but for a lot of situations, the actual sort of live translations are pretty much as good as a translator anyway.
Do you think people from admissions departments might lose their jobs in the future? I'll answer that. I don't. I think that's unlikely. I drew a line between the difference. I think between the customer service industry, where they are kind of they've overstretched themselves by hiring lots of people, having very big customer service departments based all over different places of the country and internationally, and they are obviously quite concerned about using automation to cut back their need. I don't think that works, that translates across in the education market, because I think we're so stretched with our jobs on a day-to-day basis, and just trying to handle the sheer amount of prospectus requests, the emails back and forth, the frequently asked questions. I think this tools going to help retain people more than anything, and take the pressure off. Josh, have you got any views on the eternal question of is this taking jobs?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think we are a long way from chatbots or any kind of AI being like you see in the movies, where they can answer every question perfectly, sort of really replace like a human conversation. What they're good at is cutting out the things that you might have to answer 100 times a day that people don't really need to speak to someone. What that does is frees up the time to actually deal with the customers that do need that actual conversation and sort of real human interaction. So from what we found, where we've deployed in utilities companies and sort of public sector councils and that kind of, like, it hasn't led to job loss. It's ended up with like hold times being, which especially in sort of more regulated, that's been a massive win for them. So yeah, I don't really see, especially in the short term, that we're going to be sort of close to people losing their jobs, like you say, unless it's a massively overstaffed department anyway.
Okay. What about you asked about NLP? What's NLP?
Yes, NLP is natural language processing. So this is the understanding of free text by like an AI system. So what we do, I mean, there's sort of lots of systems around, but what we do in the engine that we've built in-house here is we split up a big sentence into lots of little parts. We then entities and the utterances of that sentence. So if you were to, you know, my favorite color is red, for example, is a really basic one. We pick up that favorite is something that you like, color is what you're on about, and red is the actual thing that you're sort of talking about. And we put all that together, map it against a huge knowledge base that we, and then that's how we sort of return conversation back to the user.
One thing I'm sure everyone will think about, is you mentioned CRMs and stuff before, and Paul's asked a question, and that's something that I always think about. That almost every institution you're going to interact is going to have a different way of storing their customer information or student information, their prospectus, their application data. How do you deal with that? Do they have to run a particular type of database, or do you help them?
No, I mean, we're really consultative and sort of hold your hand from literally start to finish, and basically if it's got some kind of API or connection of any kind, more than likely we can connect to it, and we'll sort of pick up the pieces on that side to make sure we can get access to your data. So yeah, we're not reliant on customers having you know, a set from a sort of a menu set of integrations. We can pretty much connect to anything, and I think really the more you can connect to, the better your chatbot will be.
Okay, well, and I'll ask one final question, because I noticed the sentiment thing. But if anyone's got any other questions, drop it in chat now. If we've got time, we'll go on for another couple of minutes. But if you've got a question, drop it now. But while you think of any questions, what about how are you actually judging sentiment, and what do you do with that information?
So we, through our NLP, we basically rank words and phrases and how they're used in a sentence against a sort of scoring system that we. How we use it currently is one, in a very light touch way, in order just to, when an agent is about to deal with someone, just to have a quick glance and either get a smiley face, a sad face, or a sort of a neutral face, just to see what you're walking into, which is always quite nice when you sort of start a conversation and you know what you have to do. But in a deeper way, then we can actually start to customize the language based on that sentiment. So if someone comes to a chatbot and says, I am massively frustrated with your service, I want to quit, I've had enough, then you probably don't go back to that customer with lots of sort of smiley faces and sort of too friendly language. We can actually return a slightly more sort of sentimentally appropriate message.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, thanks everyone for joining. You will receive a link with a recording and some supplementary information on this. But feel free to reach out to us or Josh at any time if you've got any AI projects that you're thinking of doing or struggling with. Always happy to help and advise. And so for now, thank you very much and have a great weekend. Goodbye.